took my son for daycare registration only to see his billionaire CEO father, who denied paternity, enrolling his new son. My son's laughter died in my throat as I locked eyes with the man who'd once sworn I was trying to ruin his life with a baby that wasn't his. "Mommy, I made a tower," 3-year-old Theo called, oblivious that his father, his biological father, stood frozen at the reception desk, another child balanced on his hip. Micah Hargrove, not just any father. A billionaire architect whose face graced magazine covers, who'd threatened legal action when I told him I was pregnant. The man who'd walked away without a backward glance was now enrolling another son at the same daycare. The receptionist's cheerful voice cut through my shock. "Mr. Hargrove, we're delighted you've chosen Sunshine Beginnings for little Leo." I watched Micah's pen hover above his enrollment forms as Theo's laughter pulled his attention across the sunlit room. His body went rigid, jaw slackening as he took in my son's face. Those distinctive hazel eyes, the sharp jawline, the mirror image of himself. The toddler in his arms squirmed as Micah's gaze traveled from Theo to me, recognition hitting him like a physical blow. "Audrey," he whispered, my name a confession and a plea. Theo abandoned his blocks, racing to my side. "Mommy, why is that man looking at me like that? What would you do when the man who denied your child's existence suddenly appears with another son? How do you protect your innocent 3-year-old from the billionaire father who chose empire over family? And why does he want back in your lives now?" I never imagined I'd become a single mother. For years ago, I had everything mapped out. A thriving career in graphic design, a beautiful loft apartment I shared with Micah, and dreams that seemed within reach. We'd been together 3 years, talking about marriage, planning a future. Micah Hargrove wasn't just my boyfriend. He was my partner, my confidant, the man I believed would stand beside me through anything. The day I discovered I was pregnant, I'd prepared a special dinner, bought non-alcoholic champagne, practiced my announcement. I wasn't nervous, excited, yes, surprised certainly, but not afraid. We talked about children as part of our someday. Someday had simply arrived earlier than planned. "I'm pregnant," I told him when he walked through the door, too excited to wait through dinner. About 6 weeks along. I expected joy, shock, maybe a moment of adjustment. What I got was silence. Then calculation. "This isn't a good time, Audrey," he said finally, his voice distant. "The Westbrook project is at a critical stage. I'm weeks away from the partnership decision. I know the timing isn't perfect, but have you considered all the options?" He interrupted, his voice clinical. That's when I knew something was fundamentally wrong. This wasn't a matter of timing or surprise. This was Micah revealing a part of himself I'd never seen, a man who viewed our child as an inconvenience to his carefully plotted career path. The following weeks were a blur of arguments, tears, and ultimately, heartbreak. When the partnership offer came through, I thought perhaps things would improve. Instead, he sat me down for what he called a realistic discussion about our future. "I'm not ready to be a father," he said flatly. "My career is taking off. This child would derail everything I've worked for." "This child is part of both of us?" I countered, protective hands covering my still flat stomach. "We created this life together." His laugh was hollow. "Convenient timing, isn't it? Right when I'm about to make partner." The accusation stung like a physical blow. "Are you suggesting I got pregnant on purpose? We live together, Micah. We've talked about marriage. Talk is different from a lifetime commitment. I can't do this, Audrey. I won't." 2 days later, I came home to find his essential belongings gone and a note on the kitchen counter with a check that he called assistance for your situation, as if our child was a problem to be solved with money. What followed was worse. My calls went unanswered, emails returned unread. When I finally cornered him outside his office, he threatened legal action for harassment. The final blow came in a cold, formal letter from his attorney, denying paternity and any responsibility, stating that any further contact would result in a restraining order. The man I loved, the man I thought I knew, had vanished. In his place stood a stranger who could look me in the eyes and deny his own child. I built a new life, piece by careful piece. My sister Bianca became my rock, attending doctor's appointments and helping me prepare for single motherhood. My parents, though disappointed by Micah's actions, rallied around me with practical and emotional support. "You don't need him," my father said firmly, helping me move into a small but sunny apartment across town. "This baby has plenty of people who already love him." And he did. When Theodore James Rhodes entered the world after 18 hours of labor, he was welcomed by a circle of love that didn't include his father, but was no less powerful for that absence. Theo was perfect. 10 fingers, 10 toes, and eyes that seemed to hold wisdom beyond his newborn status. "He has your smile," the nurse said as she placed him in my arms. "And his father's eyes," I whispered, seeing Micah's distinctive hazel gaze looking back at me from our son's tiny face. By Theo's 3rd birthday, I rarely thought about Micah anymore. Occasionally, I'd see his name in business headlines or glimpse his face on magazine covers. Hargrove Innovations had become one of the premier architectural firms in the country, with Micah as its billionaire CEO. His success story was everywhere: the visionary architect revolutionizing urban spaces, the billionaire who'd recently married Vanessa Palmer, daughter of real estate mogul James Palmer. I would scan these articles quickly, then turn the page. His life had nothing to do with ours anymore. Until that Tuesday morning at Sunshine Beginnings Daycare, when past and present collided with the force of a wrecking ball. The receptionist looked between us, sensing the electric tension. "Oh, do you two know each other?" Before I could respond, Micah stepped forward, his voice steady despite the shock still evident in his eyes. "We're old acquaintances. It's been a few years." Acquaintances. The word was both laughable and infuriating. The father of my child, the man I'd once planned to marry, reduced us to acquaintances. "Theo," I said, finding my voice at last, "why don't you go back to your blocks while I finish this paperwork? I'll watch you from here." My son hesitated, looking curiously between Micah and me before shrugging and returning to his tower. Children's resilience, their ability to move past adult tension, has always amazed me. Micah shifted the toddler on his hip, who was now reaching for a colorful mobile hanging from the ceiling. "This is Leo," he said quietly, as if I'd asked. "He's 14 months old." The information hit like a blow. 14 months, which meant Micah had been married and expecting another child, while I was struggling through Theo's terrible twos alone. "Ms. Rhodes," the receptionist held out a clipboard. "I need your signature on these health forms." I took the papers with hands I forced to remain steady, turning away from Micah to complete the registration. I felt him step closer, his voice dropping to ensure only I could hear. "Audrey, we need to talk. Properly. Not here." "For years too late," I replied without looking up, my pen scratching across the form with more force than necessary. "Please. There's more happening here than you know." "Clearly," I nodded toward Leo, who was now squirming more insistently. "Congratulations on your newfound interest in fatherhood." The receptionist pretended not to listen, suddenly very focused on her computer screen. "Tomorrow, 10 o'clock, the cafe on Maple Street," he said quietly. "Please, Audrey, for Theo's sake." "For Theo's sake," I echoed bitterly. "That's rich coming from you." "I know I have no right to ask," he acknowledged. "But I'm asking anyway." Even as anger coursed through me, practicality prevailed. If Micah's son would be attending the same daycare, we needed clear boundaries. For Theo's protection, if nothing else. "Fine, 10 o'clock. But I'm bringing my lawyer's contact information." Relief flickered across his face. "Thank you." I gathered Theo, who was reluctant to leave his block creation. "We have to go now, sweetie. You can play with the blocks when you start school next week." "I made a castle, Mommy," he announced proudly, pointing to his structure. "With a secret tunnel and everything." "It's amazing, buddy," I said, my heart clenching at this small evidence of the genetic connection he shared with the man standing too close beside me. As we headed toward the door, Leo called out, "Bye-bye." with a cheerful wave that Theo automatically returned. "Bye-bye, baby," Theo said with the seriousness of a 3-year-old addressing someone younger. "I'll show you how to build castles next time." Brothers acknowledging each other without knowing it. The sight nearly broke me. Outside in the parking lot, Theo chattered happily about the daycare while I strapped him into his car seat, my hands shaking slightly with delayed shock. "Mommy, who was that man with the baby?" he asked as I started the car. "Just another parent registering his child," I said, the half-truth bitter on my tongue. He looked at me funny, like he knew me. Children see more than we give them credit for. "Sometimes people remind us of other people we know," I said carefully. "The baby was cute," Theo continued, already moving on. "I'm gonna teach him blocks when we go to school." "That's very kind of you, sweetie." As I drove home, my mind raced with questions. Why now? What did Micah want after all this time? Was this about money, recognition, salving his conscience? And how would I protect Theo from whatever game his father was playing? I called Bianca the moment we got home and Theo was settled with his coloring books. "He what?" My sister's voice rose in outrage when I explained the situation. "After 4 years of nothing, he just shows up at the same daycare? That's not coincidence, Audrey. That's calculated." "He claims he didn't know Theo would be there. And you believe him?" Skepticism dripped from her words. "I don't know what to believe," I admitted. "But I've agreed to meet him tomorrow to establish boundaries." "You need a lawyer present. Or at least me. I'd love to give that man a piece of my mind." "No lawyers yet. No scenes. I need to understand what he wants first." "What he wants is to clear his conscience now that he's decided playing daddy is convenient," Bianca said harshly. "Don't let him off the hook, AUD. And don't let him disrupt what you've built with Theo." "I won't," I promised, though uncertainty gnawed at me. That night, after Theo was asleep, I found myself scrolling through news articles about Micah's rise to prominence. Hargrove Innovations had revolutionized urban architecture with sustainable, community-focused designs. Exactly the vision Micah had once described to me with such passion. His marriage to Vanessa Palmer 2 years ago had been featured in Society pages, their union described as merging architectural brilliance with real estate dynasty. And now they had a son, barely a year old according to one brief mention I found. Leo Palmer Hargrove, heir to 2 empires. What did this man, with his billions and his new family, want with the son he'd rejected? What right did he have to disrupt our carefully constructed life? Sleep evaded me that night. I tossed and turned, alternating between rehearsing cutting remarks and reminding myself to stay calm and practical. By morning, I'd armored myself with both legal knowledge and emotional distance. The cafe was quiet for a Saturday morning. I'd chosen to arrive 10 minutes early, selecting a table in the corner with good visibility of both the entrance and the street. I'd also chosen to come alone, leaving Theo with Bianca, who'd raised an eyebrow but asked no questions beyond, "Call me the second you're done." Micah arrived precisely at 10, another trait I remembered, his obsessive punctuality. No child accompanied him today. He wore casual clothes rather than the designer suits featured in his magazine profiles, but there was no disguising the confidence that success had further burnished. He spotted me immediately, hesitating just slightly before approaching. "Thank you for coming," he began after ordering coffee from the waitress. "Let's be clear," I said, folding my hands on the table. "I'm here for Theo's sake, to establish boundaries before he starts encountering your other son at daycare." Micah flinched at my emphasis. "His name is Leo. He's 14 months old. And his mother? Vanessa, my wife." He twisted the gold band on his finger in a gesture that struck me as uncertain. "Former wife, technically. We're separated." This was unexpected information, but I absorbed it with practiced neutrality. 4 years of single motherhood had taught me to compartmentalize emotions. "So you married someone else, had another child, and now you're suddenly interested in the son you denied? What changed, Micah? Did your conscience finally catch up with your ambition?" "I deserve that," he acknowledged, not meeting my eyes. But it's more complicated than you think. Enlighten me. My tone could have frozen water. He sighed, pushing his untouched coffee aside. When you told me about the pregnancy, I'd just been offered partnership track at Livingston. It was everything I'd worked for. I remember. Your career was more important than our 3-year relationship or your unborn child. I panicked, he admitted. I convinced myself you were trying to trap me, that the timing was suspicious. We were living together, Micah. We were discussing marriage. I know, but success was so close I could taste it, and I'd watched my own father destroy his career with family obligations. I was terrified of repeating that pattern. So you chose to destroy us instead. He didn't deny it. I threw myself into work. The partnership came through. Then I met Vanessa at a client dinner, the daughter of the firm's biggest investor. How convenient. It seemed like destiny at the time, he said quietly. The perfect strategic match. We married quickly, and Leo came along soon after. And now you're separated, I noted. What happened to the perfect match? His expression darkened. Vanessa discovered some communications that suggested I might have a child from a previous relationship. Understanding dawned. She found out about Theo. Micah nodded. Someone from my old architectural firm recognized you at a community event. Mentioned that your son looked remarkably like me. Word got back to Vanessa. And instead of denying it again, you what? Admitted the truth. I couldn't lie anymore. Not with Leo in my life. His voice broke slightly. Having my own child changed everything. Suddenly I understood what I'd thrown away. What I'd denied. The magnitude of what I'd done to you both. If you've ever been in a car accident, you know that strange moment of clarity before impact, when time seems to slow down and every sensation intensifies. That's how I felt hearing Micah's words. A collision was coming, and all I could do was brace for impact. I sat back, studying him. The Micah I'd known had been ambitious, yes, but also principled in his own way. Until he wasn't. Vanessa demanded a paternity test for Theo, he continued. When I refused, saying it didn't matter, that I had responsibilities regardless, she left, taking Leo with her. So that's why you're here? Your wife left you, so you thought you'd check in on your backup family? No, he said firmly, meeting my gaze directly for the first time. I'm here because I've spent the past 3 months in therapy confronting what kind of man I've become. I'm here because denying my own child is the greatest regret of my life. Theo is not a regret to be fixed, Micah. He's a person. A child who's grown up without a father because of your choices. I know, and I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even expect you to let me into his life. He reached for a leather portfolio beside him, withdrawing documents. But I want to take responsibility, legally and financially. The papers slid across the table. Acknowledgement of paternity, child support arrangements, a trust fund establishment. I don't want your money, I said automatically, leaving the documents untouched. It's not for you. It's for Theo. His education, his future. Rights without expectations or obligations on your part. And what about emotional responsibility? Are you planning to breeze into his life, then disappear again when it becomes inconvenient? I'll accept whatever role you deem appropriate, he said. Even if that's no role at all. The sincerity in his voice gave me pause. The Micah who'd abandoned us had been defensive, angry. This man seemed broken, humbled. And what about your other son, Leo? How does Theo fit with him? They're brothers, Micah said simply. Half-brothers who deserve to know each other, if you'll allow it. Vanessa and I are figuring out co-parenting. Leo will be with me 3 days a week, which is why I enrolled him at Sunshine Beginnings. The same daycare I chose, I noted with irony. Of all the daycares in the city, I didn't know Theo went there, he admitted. Sunshine has the best reputation for working parents, and it's close to my new apartment. New apartment? I moved out of the penthouse, downsized to be closer to both potential schools and my new firm. New firm, He nodded. I left Hargrove Innovations last month. Started my own practice focused on community development and affordable housing. Smaller projects, more meaningful impact. The Micah I'd fallen in love with had once talked passionately about architecture as community service before ambition had consumed him. This revelation felt like glimpsing a ghost, the man I thought I'd known, returning from wherever he'd been buried. You've made a lot of changes, I observed cautiously. Losing everything has a way of clarifying priorities, he said. I'm not asking for your trust, Audrey. I haven't earned it. But I am asking for a chance to earn it. For Theo's sake. I stared at the legal documents between us. Tangible evidence of a commitment he hadn't been willing to make 4 years ago. Part of me wanted to throw them back in his face, to protect Theo from a father who might disappear again. But another part, the part that saw our son's face light up around other children with dads, hesitated. I need time to think, I said finally, and to consult with my lawyer. Of course. He reached into his pocket and placed a business card beside the documents. My personal number is on the back. Call anytime, day or night, if you have questions. Or if you're ready to talk about next steps. Next steps. As if we were discussing a project timeline rather than our son's emotional well-being. This isn't a business negotiation, Micah. This is Theo's life. His heart. I know, he said quietly. And I know I have no right to ask for your consideration after what I did. But I'm asking anyway, as I gathered my purse, to leave. A question that had been burning inside me finally escaped. Does he know, Leo? About Theo? Micah shook his head. He's too young to understand, but I won't keep it from him as he grows. I won't build more relationships on lies. The implication hung between us, that our relationship, or at least its end, had been built on lies. Micah's lies to himself about what mattered, his lies to me about what he wanted. I'll call you, I said. Not a promise, but not a rejection either. After I've had time to process all this. Outside the cafe, I leaned against my car, letting the cool autumn air clear my head. For years of certainty, that Micah was a selfish coward who'd abandoned us without a second thought, now muddied by this apparent transformation. A small voice whispered that people don't change so fundamentally, that there must be an angle, a selfish motivation beneath the humble exterior. But another voice, quieter but persistent, reminded me that Theo deserved a chance to know his father. If Micah was sincere, if he truly wanted to make amends, did I have the right to stand in the way? Have you ever faced an impossible choice between protecting your child from potential hurt and giving them something they desperately need? If you're watching this, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Would you have given Micah a second chance, or shown him the door? Share in the comments below, and subscribe to hear what happened when I made that life-changing decision. The next week passed in a blur of consultations. I showed the documents to my lawyer, Paula, who raised her eyebrows at the comprehensiveness of Micah's proposal. This isn't a man looking to get off easy, she observed, flipping through the trust fund details. These are generous terms with no strings attached. He's essentially giving you complete control while ensuring Theo's future is secure. So you think I should accept? Legally, it's a sound offer. Better than most I've seen. She removed her glasses, fixing me with a direct look. Emotionally, that's not a question I can answer for you. I also spoke with my parents, who were cautiously optimistic but protective. People can change, my mother said carefully, but trust must be earned back slowly. My father was more blunt. Make sure this isn't just guilt money. Theo needs consistency, not a father who disappears when things get difficult. Bianca remained skeptical. He had 4 years to step up, Audrey. Why now? The question echoed in my mind as I watched Theo play in our small backyard, building elaborate structures with his outdoor blocks. He'd asked about the man with the baby several times since our daycare visit, with the innocent curiosity of a child who sensed something significant but couldn't name it. On Thursday evening, I finally called the number on Micah's card. I've reviewed the documents, I said when he answered, skipping any greeting. I'm prepared to accept the financial arrangements for Theo's benefit, but I have conditions regarding any personal involvement. Name them, he said immediately. Any relationship with Theo develops at his pace and mine. No rushing, no pressure. You follow my lead completely about what he's told and when. Agreed. If at any point I feel your presence is causing him confusion or distress, you step back without argument. Of course. And most importantly, I continued, steeling myself, this isn't a trial period. If you come into his life, you stay in his life. Consistently, reliably. Even when it's inconvenient for your career or your other family obligations. I won't have him experience abandonment twice. There was a moment of silence before Micah spoke, his voice thick with emotion. I give you my word, Audrey. I'm in this for life now, whatever that looks like. I closed my eyes, absorbing the commitment behind his words, searching for any hint of insincerity and finding none. There's a small park near Sunshine Beginnings, I said finally. Meet us there Monday after Theo's first day. Brief introduction, nothing overwhelming. We'll see how he responds. Thank you, he said quietly. I know this isn't easy for you. It's not about me, I replied. It's about what's best for Theo. Though the truth was more complicated. Part of me still ached with the memory of betrayal. Part of me feared letting Micah anywhere near my carefully constructed life. And a small, traitorous part remembered the man I'd once loved. The man who'd talked about building community through architecture, who'd held me through my father's heart attack, who'd once seemed so different from the person who'd walked away. Monday arrived with the nervous energy of multiple firsts. Theo's first day at daycare. His first meeting with his father. My first time navigating this uncharted territory of co-parenting with a man who'd denied parenthood. I prepared Theo with a simple explanation. Remember the man with the baby at registration? He's an old friend of Mommy's, and he'd like to meet you properly. Is his baby coming too? Theo asked, focused on the part that interested him most. Not this time. Just him. Theo shrugged, accepting this with the flexibility of childhood. Okay, can we get ice cream after? We'll see, I hedged, unwilling to create an association between Micah and treats. Sunshine Beginnings lived up to its reputation. Theo separated from me with minimal fuss, immediately drawn to the building blocks in the corner. I watched through the observation window as he introduced himself to another boy with the confidence I'd worked hard to instill. First day is always hardest on the parents, a voice said beside me. I turned to find a woman in her late 30s smiling sympathetically. They adjust much faster than we do. He seems fine, I agreed, watching Theo demonstrate his tower building technique. I'm Grace, the woman offered. My daughter Lily is the one in the purple dress. Audrey, I replied. That's my son Theo with the blocks. Oh, he's in the same class as my nephew. My brother-in-law just enrolled him. She glanced at her watch. Speaking of whom, he's running late as usual. A chill ran through me. Your brother-in-law? Micah Hargrove, she confirmed. My sister Vanessa's soon-to-be ex, though they're being remarkably civil about everything considering. I struggled to keep my expression neutral. You're Vanessa Palmer's sister? Grace looked surprised. You know Vanessa? Before I could formulate a response, the daycare door opened, and Micah entered with Leo in his arms. Grace waved him over, unaware of the complicated history linking us. Right on time for once, she teased as he approached. Leo was just getting settled. Traffic was lighter than expected, Micah replied, his eyes meeting mine with a mixture of surprise and something that looked like apology. I see you've met Audrey. Grace's gaze bounced between us, confusion evident. You two know each other? The moment stretched, heavy with unspoken truths. I watched Micah struggle with how to respond, saw the moment he chose honesty. Audrey and I were together before I met Vanessa, he said carefully. Her son Theo is also my son. Grace's eyes widened. Oh, I see. She looked at me with new understanding. You're that Audrey. That Audrey? I echoed, wondering exactly what she knew. Vanessa mentioned there was a previous situation. Grace's diplomatic phrasing almost made me laugh. She said it was complicated. That's one word for it, I agreed. An awkward silence fell, broken when Leo spotted a colorful toy in the classroom and squirmed to get down. I should get him settled, Micah said, relief at the interruption evident. Grace, could you give us a moment? Of course. She squeezed my arm in a gesture that seemed oddly supportive. It was nice meeting you, Audrey. I'm sure we'll see more of each other. As she walked away, I turned to Micah, your ex-wife's sister. Small world. I had no idea she'd be here, he said quickly. The arrangement was for Vanessa to drop Leo off and me to pick him up. This wasn't planned. What does Vanessa know about me? About Theo? Everything, he admitted. When the rumors started, I told her the truth. All of it, including how badly I'd handled things with you. I processed this, watching as Leo waved goodbye to his father through the classroom window. And she left you because of it? Not exactly. She left because I'd lied to her for years. And because when faced with the truth, I chose to acknowledge my responsibilities rather than continue denying them. Which she didn't support? Quite the opposite. His expression softened slightly. She told me to do whatever it took to make things right with you and Theo, even if that meant our marriage was over. The revelation stunned me. I'd constructed an image of Vanessa Palmer Hargrove as a socialite trophy wife, not someone who would prioritize a child's well-being over her marriage. The park at 3:30, I said, needing space to recalibrate. We'll meet you there as planned. Micah nodded. I'll be there. As I walked to my car, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Vanessa Palmer. Grace gave me your number. I think we should talk before you and Micah meet with Theo. Lunch today? This isn't an ambush, just two mothers trying to do right by their children. Let me know. I stared at the screen, torn between curiosity and caution. What could Micah's estranged wife possibly want to tell me? After a moment's hesitation, I typed back, 12:30. The Greenhouse Cafe on Park Street. Whatever Vanessa Palmer had to say, I needed to hear it before allowing Micah any place in Theo's life. Sometimes the most valuable insights come from unexpected sources, like the woman who had replaced you. If you're watching this and wondering what happened at that lunch, and what Vanessa revealed about the man we both had children with, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next part of this unexpected journey. And let me know in the comments if you would have met with your ex's wife in my situation. Sometimes the bravest choices are the ones that terrify us most. The Greenhouse Cafe lived up to its name, light streaming through glass walls, lush plants creating natural privacy screens between tables. I arrived 15 minutes early, selecting a corner spot with clear sight lines to both entrances. Old habits from 4 years of single motherhood: always be prepared, always have an exit strategy. When Vanessa Palmer walked in, I understood immediately why Micah had been drawn to her. Not just her obvious beauty, but the confident grace with which she navigated the space. Unlike the cold socialite I'd imagined from magazine photos, her smile carried genuine warmth as she approached. Audrey, she said, extending her hand, thank you for meeting me. I realize how unusual this must seem. Life seems to be full of unusual lately, I replied, accepting her handshake. She ordered sparkling water, declining food with a brief, I won't take much of your time. I'll be direct, she said once our server departed. I know Micah is meeting Theo today. Before that happens, I wanted you to hear my perspective on who he is as a father. This was unexpected. I'd prepared for territorial warnings or veiled threats, not whatever this was. I'm listening, I said cautiously. When Leo was born, Micah transformed completely, she began. The workaholic who regularly pulled 18-hour days started coming home for bath time. He designed the nursery himself, installed the furniture, recorded bedtime stories for nights he traveled. The picture she painted contrasted sharply with my experience of Micah, the man who'd viewed our child as an inconvenient career obstacle. That sounds nothing like the Micah I knew, I said, unable to hide my skepticism. I believe you, Vanessa replied, surprising me. Which is why I confronted him when rumors about a previous child began circulating. The man I knew as Leo's devoted father couldn't possibly have abandoned another child. Except, of course, he had. She leaned forward slightly. When I demanded the truth, he broke down completely. The compartmentalization he'd built to live with himself collapsed. He confessed everything. How he'd convinced himself his career had to come first. How he'd justified abandoning you both. And you left him for it? I noted. I left because our relationship was built on a fundamental lie. But I also witnessed genuine remorse and determination to make amends regardless of personal cost. Her expression softened. The man loves Leo with everything he has. And I believe he wants to love Theo the same way, if given the chance. Love doesn't erase 4 years of absence, I said firmly. No, it doesn't. Nothing does. She gathered her purse, preparing to leave. I'm not asking you to forgive him. I'm offering my perspective as someone who's seen him parent. Whatever his failures before, Micah is a good father to our son. Theo deserves that too, if you decide it's right. As she stood, she added something that caught me completely off guard. Our sons are brothers. If you allow Micah into Theo's life, I want you to know I'll respect whatever boundaries you set, and I'll ensure Leo understands his relationship with Theo. The generosity behind her words was stunning. Why are you doing this? Most women would view me and Theo as threats. Because children deserve better than adult drama, she replied simply. And because I've seen Micah's face when he looks at your son's photo. That's not obligation, Audrey. That's love he hasn't earned the right to express. She placed a business card on the table. Call me anytime, mother to mother. Her parting words lingered as she walked away. For what it's worth, Theo has an extraordinary mother. That matters more than anything else. The park near Sunshine Beginnings featured a modern playground nestled among mature oak trees. I arrived with Theo precisely at 3:30, his excitement about the swings temporarily overriding any awareness of why we were really there. Micah was already waiting, seated on a bench with a small gift bag beside him. He wore casual clothes, jeans and a sweater that reminded me of the man I'd known before success transformed him. He stood when he spotted us, uncertainty etched across his features. Theo, I said, keeping my voice light. This is Mommy's friend I told you about. His name is Micah. My son regarded Micah with open curiosity. You had the baby at school. That's right, Micah replied, crouching to Theo's level. His name is Leo. He's a little younger than you. I'm 3.5, Theo informed him seriously, holding up 3 fingers. That's pretty big, Micah acknowledged with matching seriousness. I noticed you're really good at building with blocks. The tower you made was impressive. Theo's face lit up at the recognition of his talent. I'm gonna be a builder when I grow up. Or maybe an astronaut. Or maybe a builder who builds stuff in space. That's an excellent combination, Micah said, and I caught the slight tremor in his voice. The emotion of this first real conversation with his son. Can I go swing now? Theo asked, already turning toward the playground. Go ahead, I nodded. Stay where I can see you. As Theo raced off, Micah straightened, watching him with undisguised wonder. He's incredible, Audrey. So confident, so bright. He is, I agreed, and vulnerable in ways he doesn't understand yet. Micah sat beside me, maintaining a respectful distance. I met with Vanessa today, I said, watching his reaction carefully. Surprise flickered across his face. You did? She didn't mention she was planning to contact you. She wanted to give me her perspective on you as a father. And what did she say? The question carried genuine concern. That you're a good father to Leo. That you transformed when he was born. I turned to face him directly. Which raises the obvious question. Why didn't you transform when you learned about Theo? Pain flashed across his face. I don't have a justification, only an explanation. When Vanessa told me she was pregnant, I was in a different place mentally. The partnership, the success, I'd achieved what I thought I wanted. I wasn't fighting for survival in the same way. He watched Theo pump his legs on the swing, gaining height with each movement. With you, the pregnancy felt like a threat to my ambition. With Vanessa, a child felt like a natural progression in a life already secured. His voice broke slightly. I was wrong, Audrey. The man I was 4 years ago made choices I can never fully make right. The raw honesty in his voice resonated with something Vanessa had said about compartmentalization collapsing. This wasn't the calculated Micah who'd walked away, nor the polished billionaire from magazine covers. This was someone humbled by his own failures. I brought something for Theo, he said, indicating the gift bag. If you think it's appropriate. I examined the contents. A children's architecture set with sophisticated wooden pieces designed for small hands but capable of creating complex structures. It's what my father gave me when I was 4, Micah explained. The beginning of my interest in architecture. But if it's too much, it's thoughtful, I acknowledged. But gifts don't build relationships, Micah. Consistency does. I know. This is just a starting point if you'll allow more. Theo's delighted shriek drew our attention as he jumped from the swing at its highest point, landing with the fearlessness of childhood. Mommy, did you see how high I went? I saw, buddy. Be careful. Okay? He nodded before racing toward the slide, energy inexhaustible. What have you told him about his father? Micah asked quietly. Age-appropriate truth, I replied. That his daddy wasn't ready to be a parent when he was born. That it wasn't Theo's fault. That families come in different configurations, all capable of providing love. Has he asked specific questions? Recently, yes. Last month he asked if his daddy would ever want to meet him. I told him I didn't know, but that many people would be lucky to know what an amazing boy he is. Micah's hands clenched in his lap. Thank you for not making me a villain in his story. That wouldn't serve Theo, I said simply. Children internalize rejection, make it about themselves. How do we proceed from here? Micah asked. I'd consulted a child psychologist about the healthiest approach. Slowly, consistent short interactions first. You as mommy's friend, who spends time with us occasionally. No confusing explanations until Theo starts asking questions or showing interest in a deeper connection. Micah nodded. Whatever you think is best. I'll follow your lead completely. And Leo? How does he fit into this gradual introduction? I'd like them to know each other as brothers eventually, but that timeline is entirely up to you. Something in his deference, so different from the entitled man who'd once dismissed my pregnancy as inconvenient, softened a hardened corner of my heart. He likes this playground on Saturdays, I said finally. We're usually here around 10. If you wanted to bring Leo sometime as a casual playdate, that might be a natural way for them to develop a connection. The hope that flared in his eyes was almost painful to witness. I'd like that very much. Micah, I added firmly, this is provisional. If your presence confuses or upsets Theo in any way, we reevaluate immediately. Understood. His well-being comes first. Always. Theo raced back, us breathless from play. Can I have a snack, Mommy? I'm starving. Sure, sweetie. I packed your favorite crackers. I reached into my bag for his snack. What's that? Theo pointed to the gift bag. I glanced at Micah, who gave a small nod. Actually, Micah brought this for you. Would you like to see what it is? Theo's eyes widened with excitement. For me? Really? Really? Micah confirmed. I noticed how good you are at building things. Theo gasped when he pulled out the wooden architecture set. Wow, these are fancy blocks. Look, Mommy, they have curves and everything. They're special building pieces, Micah explained, for creating all kinds of structures, houses, towers, bridges. Can we try them now? Please. Theo looked between us, already dumping pieces onto the bench. For a little while, I agreed. Then we need to head home for dinner. What followed was 30 minutes of uncomplicated joy as Theo directed both of us in constructing what he called a super castle space station. Micah followed his instructions with the seriousness of an architect consulting with an important client, offering gentle suggestions that Theo sometimes accepted, sometimes rejected with confident authority. Watching them together, dark heads bent over wooden pieces, the same focused expression, the same hands moving with natural precision. I felt something shift within me, not forgiveness for the past, but perhaps a willingness to consider a different future than the one I'd imagined. This was the best day, Theo declared as we packed up the blocks. Can Micah come play again sometime? The question hung in the air. Micah looked to me, carefully avoiding any pressure. I think that might be nice, I said measured. If Micah isn't too busy with work. I'd make time, Micah said quietly. Any time. As we parted ways, Theo surprised us both by giving Micah a quick hug around the legs. Thank you for my blocks. They're the best blocks ever. The emotion that crossed Micah's face, joy mingled with heartbreak for all he'd missed, was almost too raw to witness. You're welcome, Theo. I'm really glad you like them. Back in the car, Theo chattered about his new building set while I processed everything. The unexpected meeting with Vanessa, Micah's genuine connection with our son, the complexity of the path ahead. I like your friend Micah, Theo announced suddenly. He doesn't talk to me like I'm a baby, and he knows about building stuff. He does, I agreed neutrally. He designs buildings for his job. Really? Theo's eyes widened. Like actual real buildings? That people go in? Really? Whoa. The revelation clearly elevated Micah in my son's estimation. That's even cooler than space. The question came 3 weeks into our new arrangement, as I knew it eventually would. Mommy? Theo asked one evening during bedtime. How come Leo calls Micah daddy, but I call him Micah? I'd prepared for this moment with the child psychologist's guidance. Well, sweetie, that's because Micah is Leo's daddy. Theo considered this, his brow furrowed in concentration. But if Leo is my friend, and Micah is Leo's daddy. He worked through the logic with determined focus. Is Micah my daddy too? The moment stretched between us, weighted with significance. What would you think about that? I asked carefully. I don't know. He clutched his stuffed dinosaur closer. I never had a daddy before. That's true, I acknowledged. But you've always had people who love you very much. But not a daddy. He persisted with the directness of childhood. I took a deep breath. Theo, Micah is actually your daddy too. He wasn't ready to be a daddy when you were a baby, but now he'd like to be part of your life, if that's something you want. His eyes widened. Really? He's my actual for real daddy? Yes, sweetie. He is. Is that why I look like him? And why I like building things like him? Exactly. You share certain special things because he's your biological father. Theo processed this with remarkable composure. Can I call him daddy like Leo does? If you want to. But you don't have to right away. You can take time to think about it. He nodded solemnly. I'll think about it, but I think I want a daddy, especially if it's Micah, 'cause he's pretty cool. I called Micah after Theo fell asleep, explaining the conversation. His response was measured, emotional but controlled. Whatever he's comfortable with, he said. I'll follow his lead completely. He seems ready to acknowledge you as his father, I said. But children can be unpredictable with big changes. He might have more questions or need to process this differently as time passes. I understand. I'll be prepared for anything. The following Saturday at the playground marked a turning point. When Micah arrived with Leo, Theo approached them with his usual enthusiasm but stopped short, suddenly shy. Hi, Micah, he said. Then after a hesitant pause, are you really my daddy? Micah knelt to Theo's level, his voice gentle but honest. Yes, Theo, I am. And I'm very sorry I haven't been in your life until now. How come you weren't? The direct question that adults often avoid, delivered with a child's innocence. Because I made a mistake, Micah said simply. A big one. I was scared of being a daddy when your mom told me about you, and I let that fear make a bad decision. But I'm not scared anymore, and I'd like to be your daddy now if you'll let me. Theo considered this with surprising seriousness. Did you say sorry to Mommy? I did. Many times. And I'll probably need to keep saying it for a long time. When I make a mistake, I have to try to fix it. Theo informed him, clearly relaying a lesson I'd taught him. That's exactly right, Micah agreed. And I'm trying to fix my mistake by being here now. It doesn't erase what happened before, but I'm hoping we can build something good going forward. Theo nodded, seemingly satisfied. So you're really my daddy? And Leo's my brother? Yes to both. A smile broke across Theo's face. Cool. I always wanted a brother. And a daddy. The simplicity of children. Their capacity for forgiveness. Their focus on present connection rather than past wounds. Never ceases to amaze me. What adults complicate with layers of hurt and caution, children approach with straightforward openness. That day marked a turning point. Theo began calling Micah Daddy immediately, with no transition period needed. Leo, though too young to fully understand, seemed to grasp that his relationship with Theo was special. For the adults, adjustments came more gradually. Micah and I established a co-parenting relationship focused on Theo's needs, communicating regularly about everything from preschool progress to nighttime routines. Vanessa and I developed an unexpected mutual respect, bound by our commitment to the boys' relationship as brothers. 2 months after that fateful daycare encounter, Micah approached me with a proposal. I've been looking at houses in this neighborhood, he said as we watched the boys play. Something with enough space for both Theo and Leo. I'd like to establish a more regular visitation schedule, if you're comfortable with it. The idea of Theo spending nights away sparked anxiety I hadn't anticipated. I don't know, Micah. He's still so young. Of course, no pressure. Maybe we could start with dinner at my place once a week. Get him comfortable with the environment before considering overnights. His sensitivity to my concerns made it easier to consider his request. That seems reasonable. We could try dinners and see how he responds. Thank you, he said simply, for giving me the chance to be his father. I know I don't deserve it. It's not about what you deserve, I replied. It's about what Theo needs. Yet as the words left my mouth, I realized they weren't entirely true. Watching Micah these past weeks, his patience, his genuine joy in fatherhood, his respect for boundaries, had slowly rebuilt something I'd thought permanently destroyed. Trust. Not complete trust. Not blind faith. But enough to believe he meant what he said about being present for Theo's future. Dinner at Micah's new home became a weekly tradition. His place was modest by Billionaire standards. A comfortable 4-bedroom house in a family-friendly neighborhood, tastefully furnished but clearly designed with children in mind. The boys had a dedicated playroom filled with building toys, books, and art supplies. Leo's room featured a space theme, while the room Micah had prepared for Theo incorporated his love of architecture and construction. I hired a child psychologist to consult on the room setup, Micah explained during our first visit. I wanted it to feel welcoming but not overwhelming, a place he could gradually claim as his own rather than feeling it was imposed on him. The consideration touched me deeply. This wasn't the impulsive gesture of a guilty father throwing money at a problem. This was thoughtful, research-informed parenting. Theo thrived under the new arrangement. Having his father's focused attention brought out new confidence in him. Watching the brothers together. Theo teaching Leo to stack blocks, Leo attempting to mimic his big brother's every move. I found myself grateful for their connection despite the complicated circumstances that created it. 3 months into our new arrangement, Micah invited me to coffee, just adults, while the boys had a playdate with my sister. I wanted to check in about our arrangement, he said once we were seated. How you feel things are progressing. Better than I expected, I admitted. Theo loves his time with you and Leo. And you've been, I hesitated, searching for the right words. Consistent, thoughtful, everything I asked you to be. I'm trying, he said simply, every day, to be the father Theo deserves. You're doing well, I assured him. His teacher mentioned he's been drawing pictures of my daddy and my brother alongside the usual family portraits with me. Micah's eyes brightened at this information. That means more than I can express. A comfortable silence fell between us, the kind that would have been impossible months earlier. There's something else I wanted to discuss, he continued. I've been offered a significant project, an eco-friendly community development that incorporates everything I've been working toward with my new firm. That's wonderful, I said, genuinely happy for his success, which no longer seemed at odds with his role as Theo's father. It would mean a 2-week trip to Portland for the initial planning phase, he continued. I wanted to discuss how to handle that with Theo. I don't want him feeling abandoned when we've just established this connection. The consideration, so different from the man who'd once prioritized career above all else, struck me forcefully. When would this be? Next month. I was thinking video calls every evening during bedtime routine, and perhaps you could help me prepare him for the separation. Of course, I agreed. Children are resilient when changes are explained properly. We can talk about how you'll be building important things but always thinking of him. I'd like that. Micah hesitated, then added, would it be completely inappropriate to ask if you and Theo might join me for the second week? Portland has an excellent children's museum, and the hotel has a pool. Leo and Vanessa would come too. She has business connections there. The invitation caught me off guard. A family vacation that wasn't quite a family vacation, with our unconventional blended arrangement. Just as co-parents, Micah clarified quickly. Separate rooms, separate schedules except for activities with the boys. I just thought Theo might enjoy the trip, and it would mitigate the separation. The thoughtfulness of the offer, putting Theo's needs above convenience, tipped the scales. I think that could work, I said. Theo would love a hotel pool, and a plane ride would be a big adventure for him. The smile that broke across Micah's face carried genuine pleasure rather than triumph. Thank you. I'll have my assistant send you the details. All expenses covered, of course. I can pay my own way, I said automatically. I know you can, he acknowledged. But this is my project, my invitation. Please let me handle the arrangements. Something in his respect for my independence while still wanting to provide softened my resistance. All right, but I'll review everything before committing. As we finished our coffee, Micah asked the question I sensed had been on his mind. Audrey, are we okay? Not just co-parenting, but you and me? Have we found a workable peace? The question deserved honest reflection. 3 months ago, I'd been consumed by anger and distrust. Now, watching the man across from me, the father who read bedtime stories to both sons, who remembered Theo's favorite dinosaur names, who consulted child psychologists to ensure his bedroom felt welcoming, I recognized how far we'd come. We're getting there, I said truthfully. I can't pretend the past didn't happen, but I see who you are now with Theo, with Leo. That matters more than who you were 4 years ago. Thank you, he said quietly. That's more than I hoped for. As I watched him across the table, I realized something unexpected. The man who'd broken my heart and abandoned our child had indeed changed, not just in circumstances or priorities, but in fundamental ways that spoke to genuine growth. The entitled, ambitious architect who'd viewed a child as an inconvenience had become a father who rearranged business meetings for preschool plays, who got down on hands and knees to build block towers, who consulted experts to ensure his son's emotional security. People can change. Not easily, not quickly, and certainly not without consequences for past actions. But meaningful transformation is possible when someone faces their failures honestly and commits to a different path forward. The Portland trip proved transformative for all of us. Watching Theo experience his first plane ride, his excitement at the hotel pool, his pride in showing Leo the exhibits at the Children's Museum, these moments created a foundation of shared experiences that transcended our complicated beginnings. One evening, as both boys finally succumbed to exhaustion after a day of sightseeing, Micah and I found ourselves alone on the hotel balcony. The city lights spread below us. Thank you for coming, he said quietly. Seeing Theo experience all these firsts, I can't express what that means. He's having the time of his life, I acknowledged. You've given him something special with this trip. We've given him something special, Micah corrected gently. This works because of your willingness to move forward. Audrey, your capacity for seeing beyond my failures to what could be good for Theo. The acknowledgement, his recognition of my role in facilitating this new family dynamic, touched something deep within me. I never imagined we'd be here, I admitted. That day at the daycare, seeing you with Leo, I couldn't envision any positive outcome. I don't blame you. I gave you every reason to expect the worst. But you proved me wrong, I said, realizing the truth as I spoke it. You showed up, consistently, respectfully. You put Theo first even when it was difficult. I'm trying to be the father he deserves, Micah said simply. Under the Portland stars, with our sons sleeping peacefully inside, something shifted between us. Not romance rekindled, but perhaps the beginning of a deeper forgiveness. Not forgetting, never that, but a conscious choice to build something new from the broken pieces of what had been. Today, 6 months after that chance encounter at Sunshine Beginnings Daycare, our family defies conventional labels. Theo spends 2 days a week at Micah's home, with regular brother playdates with Leo. Vanessa and I have developed a respectful co-mothering relationship. Micah and I communicate with increasing ease, focused on Theo's needs rather than past grievances. Are there still difficult moments? Absolutely. Times when old hurt surfaces, when I remember those lonely months of pregnancy, when Theo asks innocent questions about why his daddy wasn't there when he was a baby. But these moments no longer define our relationship. What defines us now is watching our sons build towers together, Theo patiently guiding Leo's smaller hands. It's their shared laughter, the undeniable connection between brothers that transcends the complicated circumstances of their births. It's Micah's unwavering commitment to being present for both his children, prioritizing fatherhood in ways I once thought impossible. Second chances rarely look like we expect. Sometimes they come disguised as our worst fear, like seeing your ex with another child at daycare registration. Sometimes they require more courage, more forgiveness, more willingness to reimagine the future than we believe we possess. But for Theo's sake, and perhaps, unexpectedly, for my own, I'm grateful for the second chance that walked into Sunshine Beginnings that morning. Not because it erased the past, but because it opened a door to a future I never could have imagined. A future where my son has not just a father, but a brother, an extended family, and a mother who found strength she didn't know she had. If you're facing a choice between protecting yourself from past hurt and opening the door to new possibilities, remember that sometimes the bravest path isn't the safest. Sometimes it's the one that terrifies you but holds potential for something beautiful to emerge from broken pieces. If my story has helped you see your own situation differently, please subscribe to hear more about navigating co-parenting, blended families, and finding your way through life's unexpected turns. Share your experiences in the comments. There's strength in knowing we're not alone in these complicated, messy, beautiful human journeys.